An unwise man once said, no one man should have all that power. Rankings. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Texas Tech crossover.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Texas Tech crossover. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Chris Level of Locked On Texas Tech, talking all things Red Raiders every single day. Thank you for making our two shows your first listen every single day. We will start with the power rankings in the Big 12 this week, and then BYU and Texas Tech finally in the AP Top 10. Is this the first time the poll has gotten it correct? To what do we owe the honor of finally the Big 12 has two teams in position for the college football playoff? And we'll end it with ESPN, YouTube TV, the SEC. It seems like the power brokers of college football are shakier today than they were yesterday. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Level, before we jump at the power rankings, before I even give them to you, who should be number one? Is Texas Tech the best team in the Big 12?
I mean, I think BYU should be number one. I think the AP poll suggests that. I think that, they haven't had a slip up. Texas Tech has. I think that'll be decided this weekend. Folks, BYU's like 19-2 over the last 2 years. People, want to talk about, well, they barely did this, or it doesn't look like it's supposed to. They just win. And so what more are you asking? So I think Kalani Sitake honestly should be coach of the year at this point. Maybe that changes in the next 3 to 4 weeks, but I have no problem with BYU. And again, a power ranking doesn't really matter. We'll get CFP this week, and that's the one thing that matters the most. And they are supposed to factor all kinds of things in: margin of victory, who you've played, where you've played them, injuries, and all the stuff. And then I guess we can agree or disagree with all that stuff. But as far as power rankings go, I think it's pretty clear that there is a BYU Texas Tech tier, and then there is a Utah Arizona State tier.
Yeah, good. Okay, so if I can pause you there. To me, I want to almost put Utah in that top three, especially after what we saw. I think you can
get that. Well, okay. I get that, but I can't do that when both of the teams in the other tier have beat Utah straight up. I just can't. Doubt. Yeah.
But I think, and one of them was a blowout, but to me, what if Utah lost to, and they lost to two top 10 teams in the country? What if Utah is the 10th best team in the country? They just lost to number 8 and number 9. There's a very real possibility that the Utes deserve to be a top 15, arguably top 12 team in America.
Yeah, they're either the back end of the top tier or the top end of the second tier. Either way, I think maybe we are agreeing on the same thing. But because I think Utah is very good. I think that I knew that win in Salt Lake City for Texas Tech was big. I just don't know if we knew how big it would be. And I guess as the weeks go along, that is proving to be, the best game that you've played or the best win that you have on your resume. A week ago, I would have said maybe that was Houston, but then Houston doesn't take care of their business at home against West Virginia against like what looked like 15,000 fans. So, yeah, but I think that, and I'll say this: I don't think Arizona State can really be a conference contender. They've got the tiebreaker over Texas Tech.
Yep.
But kudos to them for going on the road and winning in Ames, Iowa, with no Sam Leavitt or no Jordan Tyson, because those two players in particular were everything against Texas Tech. They played phenomenal. They were better than Texas Tech that day, and kudos to them for going to figure out a way to get it. That's a culture type win for Kenny Dillingham and his program, so they definitely deserve some love too.
Power rankings for me, I'm going to go 1 BYU, 2 Texas Tech. That's objective. 3 Utah. That still feels pretty objective. Then Cincinnati, the only other Big 12 team in the top 25, but I think the gap for me comes after Utah, specifically with Arizona State at 5. Houston moved to 6. I'll round out the top 8 with TCU at 7 and now Kansas State at 8. That's where level, if we really want to talk about a gap, I think after you get past Houston and TCU, once you start hitting the Kansas States, Iowa States, Arizonas of the world, that's where the Big 12 goes from, okay, you're in the Alamo Bowl with some respect to, man, making a bowl game, making a good bowl game is going to be tough for the rest of those teams.
Yeah, I failed to mention Cincinnati. That's my fault. They're not on Texas Tech's schedule. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then as we're talking here, they've just gotten blown out by 30-plus points in Salt Lake City. But they've been one of the best stories in the league. I think, what Brendan Sorsby has done and all that. And they do they're going to have some say in the way that this thing ends up, because they do play BYU in Cincinnati at some point soon. So, but I don't disagree with your premise that you could be looking at a scenario, because some things are seemingly breaking the right way, that you could have more than one team in the CFP. I'll believe it when I see it. I think they'll look for every reason to not allow that, or to, I don't know. But the two teams that are playing in Lubbock this weekend have the best chance to make that happen. And it may require avoiding a bad loss. It may require other things happening around the country. It may require a rematch between the two teams and a split between these. I don't know what that all looks like, but it's pretty clear based on resumes. And I bet the CFP rankings, they will agree with that sentiment a bit this Tuesday night. So we'll see what we get, because what is best for the Big 12 this weekend is a very hotly contested game between these two teams, and maybe a rematch, between these two teams in Arlington.
I think so. And the chips may have to fall where Texas Tech wins this weekend and then loses in the Big 12 championship. But if in the end both teams get to go to the college football playoff, it benefits Texas Tech, the Big 12, BYU, whoever. And to round out this this power ranking, I think the back half, again, these are the teams from 8 Kansas State to 9 Iowa State, 10 Arizona, who are probably going to a bowl game. 11 Baylor. Like, there's a very good chance that 11 or 12 Big 12 teams find themselves in a bowl, as Baylor, Kansas, Arizona, kind of in that teetering range there toward the bottom of the league. Then UCF at 13, West Virginia 14, Colorado 15. Oklahoma State doesn't even deserve a spot on the graphic this week, as bad as they've been really all year. Look, those teams at the bottom, Kansas, even Baylor, I'm going to put them kind of in there. Baylor, Kansas, UCF, West Virginia, Colorado, Oklahoma State, they could still play spoiler. I think for the Big 12's best interest, the more those teams lose down the stretch, probably the better for the league.
Yeah, because UCF has games against Texas Tech and BYU down the stretch. Texas Tech has to finish up at West Virginia, and we saw what West Virginia was able to do to Houston. But, yeah, I think at this point you're getting close to where you want it to hold serve if you want the best for the league in totality. Now, again, Texas Tech fans may not care, BYU fans may not care, but if you're looking at it from a Brett Yormark standpoint, or just an athletic director at one of these schools, it doesn't really matter. You're hoping for it to fall the right way to where you get multiple teams in, if at all possible. And the ACC is certainly trying to do everything they can to help you. I think based on the results from the weekend. So I guess we'll see.
The ACC fallout is something that helps the Big 12 a ton at the top, especially with Miami and Georgia Tech losing. That allowed BYU and Texas Tech to crack the top 10, and hopefully Tuesday night we'll find out they're in the top 10 of the poll that really matters. College Game Day, the game of the year in the Big 12, 2 top 10 teams. That's coming up next. Locked on Big 12, Locked on Texas Tech. Oh, but first, today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is exactly where I go when I want to. If you, I don't even know if there will be people sitting on top of other people in Lubbock, Texas this weekend. They'll be wearing blue. They'll be wearing red. They won't be throwing tortillas. I wouldn't be shocked if BYU fans cover 12% of the stadium, which is a lot when you're traveling to Lubbock, Texas. That's going to be a mass of Texas Tech fans. And the BYU fans bring their own tortillas to try to cause a penalty. And if you want to get to the game, sit in the lap, be on top of the press box, Gametime is the place to be. That's why I use Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Pull up the Gametime app, a couple of taps, see amazing deals on tickets. Some of your favorite games as low as $25. Love the zone deal. Pick the zone, they pick the tickets, you save money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase on the Gametime app. Code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Use Gametime today. We are on the precipice of the biggest game the Big 12 has seen in a few years. BYU and Texas Tech, top 10 teams. College Game Day is in town. This is all eyes in the country on Brett Yormark's league. Chris Level, How big is it that these two teams were ranked in the AP poll top 10 this week? And does it feel like we finally forced the voters to put the Big 12 and the top teams where they rightfully should be?
Yeah, you're talking ticket prices a second ago. I think that this game, I think some of the cheaper tickets are like $450 a piece.
Yeah, that's to sit on the roof.
Unbelievable. But there's some demand here. So this game, as it relates to Texas Tech, this is probably one of the biggest weeks in Lubbock from a football standpoint since 2008. I think it's been 17 years since College Game Day was back. It's also been 17 years since you won in Manhattan, Kansas. And I don't know if there's a direct correlation there or not, but this is easily the best team that you've had since 2008. And all roads lead to this. I said before the season, I felt like that your schedule, talking about Texas Tech, would come down to 3 road games, and you probably needed to win 2 of the 3. You've done that. What we didn't anticipate was BYU being just so good, so clutch, so we're just going to figure it out. We're going to have so much culture. We're going to be so tough, because nobody knew about the Bear Bachmeier and the quarterback situation that BYU was dealing with, because we all kind of dismissed the BYU whenever they had their quarterback situation. He's ended up at Tulane, and Stanford fires their head coach. So now you're the leading sack getter in the country, and David Bailey will be running after Bear Bachmeier all Saturday afternoon, or Saturday morning as it would be, and all thanks to Stanford firing their head coach, which is just is wild irony to me. And what's crazy is David Bailey is a draft pick. He might be a first-round draft pick. He has 11.5 sacks on the season. And yet BYU probably got the better end of that deal because this is a true freshman quarterback that's just been really good. And he's just, been there since, June or something? Yeah. It's just nuts. So I know Joey has got a ton of respect for Kalani Sitake. I think everybody in the league largely does. I mean, I just don't know what we're all doing here if you're trying to poke holes into what BYU has done by trying to find all that's wrong instead of focusing on 19-2 over the last 2 years. I mean, it's just hard to be better than that. And they're in a Power 4 league, for goodness sakes. If we want to talk about how good I don't want to hear they barely beat this guy, or they caught the right end of the deal and they didn't have to play these guys. No, I mean, this is really elite what they're doing here, and they're doing it with toughness and all 3 facets, and it's just culture. That's just what he's built, and this won't be easy. I am curious. Vegas has this thing as like a 10.5 point game as you and I are talking, and I don't know if that has to do with, one, the analytics seemingly point heavily to Texas Tech's favor, but 2, I wonder about LJ Martin and his status. He may be fine. He may be missing some time. I have no idea. We'll find out, I guess, soon enough. But that may be a key factor into kind of what Vegas knows or Vegas thinks. I just don't know. I know he did not finish the game in Ames, Iowa, which is the last time we saw BYU. But it's ought to be a really – and these are – we talked about this some in the summer, Drake. These are 2 of the bigger or biggest brands trying to separate a little bit, and there's a spot to be had for you kind of emerging. And I think BYU is taking it and run. I think Texas Tech's trying to take it and run, and maybe you're starting to see a little bit of separation, not just football-wise, but just athletically in general. But certainly they have separated themselves from a football standpoint to a certain extent.
So 10.5, I think, is disrespectful. And I assume most people that are associated with Texas Tech would agree with that the 10.5 point spread doesn't make a ton of sense. Because LJ Martin was out for most of that Iowa State game, and BYU utilized the legs of Bear Bachmeier in his arm. Is it fair to say then, and I almost, if you're a Big 12 fan, you mentioned athletic director, if you're Mac Rhodes, who's heading up the college football playoff committee, if you're Kirby Hocutt, you certainly want this. If you're Brian Santiago, it's like, oh man, I guess if BYU loses this game 31-30, no one loses. Like, everyone wins. You have a couple of Big 12 teams sitting at 1 loss. You're likely staring down the barrel of a rematch in Arlington here in a few weeks in the Big 12 championship. And that may be the best case scenario for this conference to get 2 teams in the college football playoff. Fair to say, if you're have the rooting interest of the Big 12 at heart, You want Texas Tech to win by 1 point.
Yeah, I mean, my fan base, my listeners won't agree. They'll I mean, and that's what's been strange about. I was not anticipating and it's not been easy. It'll look like that when you look at the box scores and look at the final scores and things like that. But other than the Arizona State game, which you lost, you did come all the way back and lead it by 3 with 2 minutes to go, and then just couldn't hold on. But you've largely just handled everybody. I was not anticipating this. These games have been close. They've been competitive, and then you just are outlasting people and just kind of blow it open. I mean, the Kansas State game was the same as the Utah game in Salt Lake. It's just that's been impressive to witness, because this is new territory for Texas Tech, because you're winning with defense and the run game. Like go figure. It's like total backwards than what I've seen for the last 20 years. It seems like. But yeah, I don't disagree with your premise. And I think BYU that the game in Cincinnati is going to be interesting. I also think they've got a tricky home game against TCU. Depending on what kind of TCU team shows up there, they are in the second tier of your power rankings. And Josh Hoover, on a good day, he can scare even the best teams and scare even the best defenses, because they have the ability to score. Eric McAllister, and so I think that could be an interesting game as well, because nobody saw West Virginia going into Houston and winning handily. That's just We're in for more chaos down the stretch. That's why we love this sport. And I just don't know where those results are going to come. And could it happen to one of these two teams that are going to match up on Saturday? I mean, down the line, you hope not, but you can't rule it out either.
Yeah, it is. What's tough is if Texas Tech has 2 losses in Big 12 play, you no longer control your destiny. And
correct.
Right now, at 1 loss, it still feels like Texas Tech is in the driver's seat to make the Big 12 championship, with the way the schedule for a Cincinnati down the stretch is going to work its way out, with the head-to-head win over Houston and how that may work its way out. Arizona State lurking in the shadows there, somehow still with the fighters' chance to go to the Big 12 championship game. And
I think you don't want to live this way, because I think if you play with fire, you're going to get burned at some point. Yeah. But I think if Texas Tech gets a head-to-head win over BYU and they were to suffer a bad loss against either UCF or West Virginia, you certainly don't want that. Yeah. But because of the way the standings may go, because I think since 2020, a Big 12 championship game has featured a 2-loss team every single year. But yeah, I don't think you want to not control or be in charge of what needs to happen here. You want to take care of your own business. And, this BYU is the last real test on paper for Texas Tech. Because after that, it's a home game against UCF, then a bye week, and then a trip to Morgantown, which can be tricky. I've been to Morgantown many, many times. Yep. Weird stuff happens there. It'll be Thanksgiving weekend. Obviously, Rich Rod's guys have not quit on him, and they're trying to figure it out. So, and then again, BYU's got a bit more of their stretch going. So but this is what we all wanted. This is what you kind of your off seasons and however you got to the point where you constructed your roster. Some of these programs really set yourself up to try to be in these kinds of positions. And here you are. It's right in front of you. And you've got all the eyes on the sport. You mentioned about the top 10 matchup, and it is. I think that what I like about it is that to get game day and to have a game be real meaningful, sometimes it just needs to fall right, and it's got to be meaningful on both sides. Other things around the country have to happen. But nobody backed into this thing. I mean, like, you've kind of earned the right to have this national stage. Both brands do, both programs do, both the league does. And yes, there was, maybe in a month ago, we're thinking Alabama, LSU gets this. Oh, ho hum, another SEC. I can't wait for all the SEC firings to come up as a reason why their league is that much better than everybody else's. Yeah. Because that argument will inevitably work its way into it just means more because we fire you if you lose a game. Anyway, I digress. I just think I think this is a fun. This is what we all kind of wanted to see for this league, way back when, and here it is. And I know Texas Tech fans have been waiting for a week like this for 15 plus years, and you weren't sure if you were ever going to get one. There were some bad times around here. You couldn't figure football out. The athletic director's taken a lot of grief. You have the wrong guy as the head coach. Somebody's either in over his head or not the right fit, whatever your thought was. And I think it all kind of led to this. BYU clearly has the right fit. And I think that these two guys are trying to build a program largely the same, and they're well resourced. And that's why I think that they've got some staying power, certainly.
Yeah. I want to talk about the context of this being the biggest Big 12 game in a very long time and where it may rank in the time that you spent covering the conference. But first, I also want to mention ESPN is kind of falling apart. This weekend was a firestorm for everybody. This is Locked On Big 12, Locked On Texas Tech. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is exactly where I go on a weekend like this. And I say, hey, I think Texas Tech very well may win this game, but 10.5 points, too many. The NBA is back. NFL is here. There's hockey on right now. There's no better place to get in on the action, whether it's Texas Tech, BYU, or a game where the Pelicans are playing, than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, and the same place that I go to make all my college football bets, like BYU plus 10.5. Even if you miss the start of a game, want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks in those basketball games. Keeps every game exciting. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. $5, it hits $300 in bonus bets with FanDuel. Chris Level of Locked On Texas Tech, YouTube TV, ESPN. I missed my quad box. I did it. I caved. I pulled the Greg Sankey. I paid $65 for Hulu. It was an immediate I already hate it. It already sucks. The SEC, the ACC kind of crumbling before our eyes. You've talked about the firings, how the SEC continues to fire coaches. Schools cannot find their footing. Major powers like LSU the governor is trying to sew together the athletic department in Baton Rouge. And ESPN is being watched. Like Fox's Big Noon Kickoff probably had a record viewership this weekend because of ESPN's shortcomings and strong arm with YouTube TV. Does it feel like the power brokers, these big-time, big names, big conferences, big people, are starting to lose their footing, and we're seeing a league like the Big 12 on the spotlight 2 weeks in a row, a league like the Big 12 finally get its flowers?
I really the media, I don't know how you want the media war or the rights fee war or
Sure.
or however you want to phrase this. It makes me tired, man. I mean, I have YouTube TV. You wake up Friday morning and you're like, what the heck is going on? Like I'd seen all the ad, but usually they just get it figured out, right? And if you're going to charge me a few more bucks, okay, so be it. I mean, this is what I'm okay with that, but it just, the whole thing makes my head want to explode just because don't mess with my football. But they know this. They know this, and it's blame whoever you want, but ultimately it's people like you and I that lose. And I think YouTube TV is a great format. I love the way it's structured and all that stuff. And I like you, I didn't do the Hulu thing, but I did sign up for the ESPN app, which I'm sure that this is exactly what they wanted me to do. But I mean, right. I'm just not going to miss sports on TV. I'm just not going to do it. And I wanted access to that. And so I'm sure I'm playing right into their hands on what they wanted me to do, which is frustrating to me, but I feel like they got me because I really want to pay attention to all these things. I don't know how this plays out. I did think that it is ironic that you're about to have College Game Day in back-to-back Big 12 markets in back-to-back weeks, and this whole dispute is going on. I don't know if there's, we can connect dots if we want. That's just maybe just the timing of it and just the way it fell. Who knows? But I do think YouTube TV is only like, I say only 10 million subscribers, so it's not like this. It is a juggernaut, but it's not like this massive force where it's
not 2012 DirecTV, Dish TV.
Correct. So I want to make sure that people know that too. But I do think, and because this BYU Texas Tech game is going to be on ABC, and that's also a part of this. It's not just ESPN; it's all the ABC, ESPN, and Disney channels. So anyway, I certainly hope they get this thing figured out before next week. just for everybody's sake and for ratings sake and all that stuff, because that is what factors into some of this CFP stuff. It does. We can act like it isn't, but it's a thing. Maybe it's a bigger thing than we realize. Maybe it's not as big of a thing as we may think. I don't know. But at some level, it is a conversation that's being had on when you're having to break ties and looking at numbers and looking at viewership and all that stuff. I think you'd be very naive to think that it doesn't.
Yeah. Funny to me too, this just came out from Richard G. West, who says, and this is incredible, rumors in the Tennessee AD office of a potential Josh Heupel buyout. Everybody wants to fire their coach. It doesn't matter who you are. You lose a game, and it's fire the coach season. Kiffin is the answer for Tennessee, apparently. What's great is as we start to get the news like this out of the Southeastern Conference, Greg Sankey tweeting, just signed up for Hulu. Just this petty stuff where the SEC doesn't seem as strong 2 years without a national championship game, as strong as it did yesterday. A game like this for BYU and Texas Tech, is this as big a game as the Big 12 has seen, given the 12-team college football playoff and the ramifications on the national scale, as big as the Big 12 has seen in your tenure covering the league?
I mean, well, I'd have to think about that. I'm sure I'm going to miss something, but in recent years, yeah, just because you really haven't been in a position to be more than a one-bid league, and right now you kind of are because of what you've done and because of what else is happening around the country. And it's funny because I bet that. I'd be willing to bet you that the Big Ten is going to really shake things up nationally when this first CFP ranking comes out, because they're going to be 1 or 2 in this deal, and it's going to be Indiana and Ohio State, and and that may drive Greg Sankey crazy.
Yeah,
but I don't think anybody could dispute that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that the Big 12 could certainly take advantage of the situation. And, yes, Missouri, and yes, Bama, and yes, Georgia, and on and on. There's still plenty of contenders in that league. But the Big Ten's got some heavyweights that, to this point, they have been really good. And we'll see what the Big 12's best do this weekend. But I think at this point, I think you've been really good. And what I like, too, is that Utah checks this box, too. I don't get caught up into some of the analytical stuff. It weights certain things more than others and all that stuff. But generally speaking, it's math. It's you can tweak the data to I think point to whatever kind of angle you want it to point to highlight what you're rooting for. But BYU, Texas Tech, and Utah analytically are all registering very good. No matter if you're looking at FPI or the SP plus stuff or PFF stuff or whatever you're looking at, and part of it is because what you're doing defensively, because there's a common theme there, but then two, in a lot of these wins by these three teams, and I think this is why it likes Utah better than Texas Tech and BYU in some cases, which I think is crazy. It's because of how they're winning the games, by how the margin of victory. And these are not close games in some cases, which the Texas Tech Utah game was not close either. So I don't know, but I think a lot of the stuff that the CFP folks are looking at, maybe they're not looking at TV numbers as much as we think. Maybe they're looking at them more, but the analytics really point to these three teams, and maybe that's why you've got them on the power ranking like you do. But I just think that there's the two of them, and then Utah belong. And again, if we're going to keep them on the same tier, then why are we playing these games? Yeah. So anyway, that's my opinion on it.
And if you're a Texas Tech fan, if you're me, if you're Drake Toll, you're the biggest Utah fan in the world the next few weeks. You want the Utes to be 10-2. You want the win against the number 10 team in the country, Utah, on the road. And BYU is the same. I think it's weird to say, but if you're a Utah fan, you're a massive BYU fan right now against Texas Tech. And if you're a BYU fan, you're a massive Utah fan. But it's because these three schools, contrary to last year, where you're looking around going, okay, who's good? That was the problem. This time last year is who in this league is good. This year we've cinched that up. We have three contenders.
I was, personally, I was rooting like crazy for Utah to hammer Cincinnati, and they did just that. Yep. And why? because some were saying, well, you want Cincinnati to win, because I just don't know if I was a big believer in Cincinnati, but I'm sitting there coming at it from a tech angle thinking that may be your best win. It looks even better now.
Yeah.
I mean, it just does. I mean, what they just did to Cincinnati, one of these other supposed contenders, and what you did, I mean, there's an 80-point difference there between the Utah-Cincinnati game and the Texas Tech-Utah game. So I was all about the Utes and the hand-painted helmets on the Saturday night for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. Can't wait for a week where the SEC again has fired a fourth of its coaches, and Clemson and Florida State have been relegated to the ACC network. This is a dream scenario,
and yet the ACC and these two schools that are on the ACC network, they fought to have unequal revenue sharing, and the joke is on them. I mean, karma remains undefeated. You cannot script this any funnier or better for the other half of the ACC going, hey, man, we appreciate it. Yep. Boy, they picked a bad year to fall on their face.
11-1 BYU, 11-1 Texas Tech, 10-2 Utah. The Big 12 is looking at its best year, a banner year. Three teams in the college football playoff. You'll look at this and say it's the best year the Big 12 could have ever dreamt up. That's Chris Level of Locked On Texas Tech, at Chris Level, at Locked On Tech. I don't think anybody's going to be clipping you and making fun of you this week. I don't.
It's possible. It's happened before.
Doesn't seem like you were much more palatable to BYU fans and very kind to them. I think they'll be okay.
And I will say this, man. I went to Provo a couple years ago. It is a great environment, And in my comments about the Utah environment, were as you know now, I had not been, and it was very impressive. But I think the point was there's a lot of good. I was just in one this weekend in Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of good environments in this league, and I think some of them don't get enough credit. And I think I've been in both of the ones in Utah, and they certainly do. But I just know what, Texas Tech didn't play BYU or Utah last year. And I remember that trip up to Provo a couple years ago. You started an 18-year-old true freshman quarterback, but it was, you got the Cosmo, he's the GOAT. And, they're spinning the fire and they're doing all the things and they're handing out ice cream to the fans and they're handing me a donut and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And then they just kick your ass. And this is just kind of the way they roll, man. And I have much respect, but,
and Level would say it, a 11 a.m. kickoff is closer to a neutral site game than a 7 p.m. It doesn't mean it's a neutral site, but it's closer to one than it would be at 7 p.m. This
isn't what you want as a home team.
No.
This isn't what you want. Now, I mean, they're going to move the Gameday show into the stadium for the last hour or so. Pat Mahomes will be there as the guest picker. There's some rumors that Andy Reid, BYU guy, that he could be making the trip as well. It'll be a circus, but because people have also asked, hey, is the game day thing gonna cause a big distraction to your team? Well, the beauty of the 11 a.m. kickoff is that you don't really even know about it. It's not really even a thing. Whereas if it's going on campus and you got a night game and all that stuff, maybe I don't know. But I don't disagree. Everybody here wanted a night game. This isn't what they dictated, and yet the 11 a.m. windows, as we know, YouTube TV aside. This is that's the best ratings typically, and the biggest, it triggers the most numbers, those 11 a.m. games. This one's on ABC, so we'll see what we get.
Get ready to learn Big 12, buddy. At Chris Level on the X. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. This has been and always will be Locked On. It's a crossover.